Hey y'all, so we're going to go ahead and continue in chapter 5, which is called Hunting, When the Heart is a Lonely Hunter. And so I've already got a couple of videos out there about it, and so this will be the third video in this series. Okay, so I had read the intro paragraph to this next section in my last video called Untangling the Skeleton, and so that's the section that we're in, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. So I'm going to read to you the second paragraph on down, and it says, "The fisherman shows his right intent, his power, and his increasing involvement with Skeleton Woman by untangling her. He looks at her all bent this way and that, and sees in her a glimmer of something, he knows not what. He had run from her, panting and sobbing. Now he thinks to touch her. She is touching his heart in some way just by being. When we comprehend the loneliness of the life-death-life nature, who, through no fault of her own, is constantly thrown away, then perhaps we too can be touched by her travail. If it is love we are making, even though we are apprehensive or frightened, we are willing to untangle the bones of the death nature. We are willing to see how it all goes together. We are willing to touch the not beautiful in another and in ourselves. Behind this challenge is a cunning test from the self. It is found even more clearly in tales where the beautiful appears ugly in order to test someone's character." And then she goes into some stories, like for example, there's one called Diamonds, Rubies, and Pearls, and the theme is the same, and I'm sure you can probably think of some stories you know of too, where it's basically a test for the character, usually the main character, where they're presented with, the not beautiful in this other character or situation or something, and it's kind of like, are they going to do the right thing? Are they going to run, or are they going to be ethical in some way or kind? So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like just who's willing to do the right thing, who's willing to put in the work, and then of course depending on what the main character or the person who's being tested, depending on how they choose, is the result. So it's kind of like you reap what you sow kind of thing in these fairy tales, and that's kind of what she's talking about. And the difference in the characters who succeed and do good with the test versus the ones who fail the test miserably and end up with bad results, the difference is typically like humility versus entitlement, or so I found. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to read a little bit past that. It says, "In fairy tale justice, as in the deep psyche, kindness to that which seems less is rewarded by good. In refusal to do good for one who is not beautiful is reviled and punished. It is the same in the great feeling states such as love. When we enlarge ourselves to touch the not beautiful, we are rewarded. If we spurn the not beautiful, we are severed from life and left out in the cold." So I think that a lot of times we don't realize the impact that we make, that we have on another person in a situation, in our own lives. What might seem to be a simple scenario can be life-changing sometimes. And so that's why, to me, I think it's always good to do self-work, to try and strive to be as self-aware and to have a growth mindset as much as possible. Because if you don't, then you're just going to me, you're going to be even more so of a target for someone who is manipulative, because they're looking for someone who just easily surrenders control to someone else. And so there's just so much danger in that. And sometimes you can slip into being that way with good intention, And then before you know it, you wind up being a people pleaser, and it's totally to the detriment of your own health and sometimes safety. So it's serious stuff. All right. So it says, what is the non-beautiful? Because that's what skeleton woman represents, right? Our own secret hunger to be loved is the not beautiful. Our disuse and misuse of love is the not beautiful. Our dereliction, I think that's right. Our dereliction in loyalty and devotion is unlovely. Our sense of soul separateness is homely. Our psychological warts, inadequacies, misunderstandings, and infantile fantasies are the not beautiful. Additionally, the life nature, which births, destroys, incubates, and births again, is considered by our cultures the not beautiful. To untangle skeleton woman is to understand that conceptual error, and to set it right. To untangle skeleton woman is to understand that love does not mean all glimmering candles and increase. To untangle skeleton woman means that one finds heartening rather than fear in the darkness of regeneration. I love how she says specifically the darkness of regeneration, because when you do wake up and realize what's going on and you're entangled with someone who's very toxic, that pulling away and needing to spend that time alone to process things, it is like a darkness of sort. It's like the dark night of the soul when you're really in the thick of it, and you're kind of, this is, this, how do you even describe it? But it's like a fog of shock, because your whole perception of reality is basically shaken up and torn apart. And so it's like you're having to get grounded again. You're having to accept hard things about the world that you didn't want to believe. Even though your eyes were showing you right in front of you, you were experiencing things. It's just that cognitive dissonance. It's like this concept of safety and self-preservation doesn't want to allow us to accept these things. And so I just appreciate her acknowledgement in how she calls this the darkness of regeneration. But it is regeneration, right? There is life to come if we can survive it, if we can, do the work and pull ourselves through. It means balm for old wounds. It means changing our ways of seeing and being to reflect the health rather than the dearth of soul. So then she goes into a skeleton itself, and how a skeleton is made of all these different bones, and how you can take this one bone and turn it, and it's kind of like these other bones that are attached, they all move together. So that's the point, is that that there's a connectedness to all this process. And so it says the skeleton is composed of hundreds of small and large odd shaped sticks and knobs in continuous harmonious relationship to one another. Also, when one tiny bone is out of place, chipped, spurred, subluxed, it hurts the integrity of the whole. When the life nature in oneself or in a relationship is suppressed, the same occurs. One's life limps along, catches, hobbles, protects movement. When there is hurt to these structures and cycles, there is always interruption of libido. Love is not possible then. We lie under the water, just bones drifting back and forth. I thought that was powerful, and it rings very true for me. It says, fear is a poor excuse for not doing the work. We are all afraid. It is nothing new. If you are alive, you are fearful. Among the Inuit, raven is the trickster. So then she goes into the symbolism of a raven, and she calls it the raven ego, which, it's kind of like a bad meaning here. We're going to get into it, which is sad because I love ravens. I love birds in general, right? But I'm not going to let this forever define my opinion of ravens. But it serves a purpose here to give us an understanding. And so you know how I think it says right here, like, you know, they have these like childlike qualities, ravens do. And it says the raven ego is very simple, like an unsocialized child, and not particularly a happy-go-lucky child either. He is more like a child who is watching all the time to see which slice is the biggest, which bed is the softest, which lover the most handsome. Sounds like a narcissist, right? 3 things differentiate living from the soul versus living from ego only. This is interesting. They are the ability to sense and learn in new ways, the tenacity to ride a rough road, and the patience to learn deep love over time. Raven ego, however, has a penchant and a proclivity to avoid learning. Yes, if you've been around a narcissist, 1,000,000%. They are set in their ways, and that's that. And if they don't know something, they're not going to even let you know they don't know. It's like such a large ego, and even in the covert, if you pay attention, it's it says patience is not ego's strong suit. Enduring in relationship is not Raven's forte. So it is not from the ever-changing ego that we love another, but rather from the wild soul. A wild patience, as poet Adrian Rich puts it, is required in order to untangle the bones, to learn the meaning of Lady Death, to have the tenacity to stay with her. It would be a mistake to think that it takes a muscle-bound hero to accomplish this. It does not. It takes a heart that is willing to die and be born, and die and be born again and again. And I think that's in reference to this cycle. I don't think that's in reference to losing yourself, to surrendering yourself. And I put notes here, not at the expense of total surrender of self, because that's, again, that's what makes you a target for a narcissist. That's what keeps you entangled, you know, long term with a manipulator, is that willingness to people please to the point of complete surrender of self. So I don't think that's certainly what she's encouraging whatsoever here. It's just acceptance that, you know, maybe old perceptions need to die as we grow and learn. You know, we have to let go of our old ways sometimes so that we can become better. So it says, a person who has entangled skeleton woman knows patience, knows better how to wait. He is not shocked or afraid of spareness. He is not overwhelmed by fruition. So there's a balance here. His needs to attain, to have right now, are transformed into a finer craft of finding all facets of relationship, observing how cycles of relationship work together. He is not afraid to relate to the beauty of fierceness, the beauty of the unknown, the beauty of the not beautiful. The beauty of the not beautiful. There is beauty in even that, because it's what helps us to grow, and it's what helps to prepare us sometimes for a future that we can't even see and we don't even know that's coming. Especially as a spiritual person, when you have faith that God does work all things for the good of those who love Him. So it says, and in learning and working at all these, he becomes the quintessential wild lover. So then it goes into how. It says, how does a man learn these things? I would say a woman as well. She basically goes into intuition and not gaslighting yourself, and which, you know, that's going to require that healing process after coming out of that narcissistic entanglement. And it says also she recommends staying aware of the cycle. Okay, so she says, if we sing the song of consciousness till we feel the burn of truth, we throw a burst of fire into the darkness of psyche, so we can see what we're doing, what we're truly doing, not what we wish to think we're doing. That's interesting. This is the untangling of one's feelings and the beginning of understanding why love and life are to be lived by the bones. In other words, getting real with yourself is how I would translate that. The ancients who sought this life and death knowledge called it the pearl of great price, the inimitable treasure. Holding the threads of these mysteries and untangling them brings a powerful knowing about fate and time. Time for all things in their own time. Rolling with the rough, gliding on the smooth. There is no knowledge more preserving, more nutritive, more strengthening of love than this. That is what awaits the lover who will sit by the fire with Skeleton Woman, who will contemplate her and allow the feeling for her to rise. It waits for those who will touch her not beauty, and who will untangle her life, death, life, nature with tenderness. I mean, how much self-awareness and control do we need to cultivate to get to that level of maturity where we are able to face hard things with grace, not self-convicting, not convicting our partner, not running away out of fear, but true acceptance that there are cycles in life, that there is impermanence in life itself, that the path is a path of growth. And I think that it's just the ultimate challenge, and if we're willing to do it, we're going to see the benefit. And it's not going to be cozy, but you know, sometimes, but the reward, so worth it, so worth it. You know, sometimes you can read articles, books, or you might find YouTube videos that talk about complacency, that sometimes, even if it's actually damaging or just not good for you in some way, the familiarity of your current situation is what actually keeps you stuck. Even though you could have a better situation, a better future, sometimes it's just that it's like we get comfortable and stagnant in that way, and instead of stepping out on faith. So to step out on faith is it's a challenge, but again, you're never going to get that next level of reward, of blessing, if you're not willing to do it, if you're not willing to let go, to truly fall into that life, death, life cycle, and trust that life is the end part of that cycle. So I just love that this calls us. This calls each one of us, whether, you know, individual or in a partnership, you know, it calls us to that challenge. So the next section is called the sleep of trust. This is so interesting. So the opening paragraph says, in this stage of relationship, a lover returns to a state of innocence, a state in which he is still awed by the emotional elements, a state in which he is full of wishes, hopes, and dreams. This is really interesting, so pay attention. I had to read it a couple of times. Innocence is different than naivety. There is an old saying in the backwoods: ignorance is not knowing anything and being attracted to the good. Innocence, not ignorance, right? Innocence is knowing everything and still being attracted to the good. I thought that was so powerful. So I'm really interested to get into this section here, the sleep of trust. And you know, that paragraph reminded me of, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about we must become as little children. And I don't have the verse right in front of me, but it's essentially we're supposed to become as little children to enter heaven or paradise, something like that. So I think that's very relevant here. I think that sometimes with the Bible, you know, verses can have like a double meaning or more. I think that, you know, it can be, sometimes it can be literal, sometimes it can be symbolic, like a metaphor for your spiritual journey, even while you're here, you know, on earth. So I found a lot of value in that, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to even though it's painful, come into this awareness of the darkness and how it operates in the world. Because in the end, you're no longer ignorant, but you can choose the innocence. You can choose the light, basically. And when you get there, it's like being born again. And it's like now you can see it all, because you were strong enough to be willing to accept and to see and to accept and to trust yourself, what you've been through and what you've experienced. So I just thought this book was so incredible, and I'm already at 15 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here and keep this one a little bit short since I put another short video out today. And I'm just really enjoying this. I hope you guys are too. So I would love to hear your thoughts if you feel called to comment. And I just appreciate you following along with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.